Let's go.
Oh, you guys ain't ready for today.
The vibe is on point.
We got a very
coming now.
We got a very special podcast because today we are doing a fan request. Multiple people have asked us for this episode, so we are going to deliver for you guys.
Yes, we're giving y'all everything, the keys to the castle. We want y'all to be where we at one day, inshallah.
Nah, don't compete with us. As I told
But
my
you
man
can join
SQ,
us.
don't try it,
Ooh.
because we will crush you.
Don't do it. Please don't do it.
No, I'm not even going. I'm not doing it.
You ain't got to.
I'm not.
I'll take over for that one.
I don't. God, so many quotes just coming to mind right now.
So, bro,
Yeah.
before we share the blessed topic that we got today,
You're.
maybe a good idea to kick this thing off.
Oh yes, let's do it, Mo. You already know what you gotta do, bro. Send me off.
Send them off, baby. Let's get
Send me
it.
off well.
Let's go, baby. Let's do it, baby. 3, 2.
Yeah.
1.
What's going on, everybody? This is Jabril Salaam,
And Muhammad Hassan.
and you are listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast.
Assalamu alaikum.
Everybody.
Now we have officially started.
Yes, and the energy is high. We are feeling great today. Hope you guys are too.
Yeah, mashallah, that was very good, man.
Yeah.
That was a good, man.
Look, man, every episode you got to come with that energy.
So today, what we have is the ins and outs of how to start a podcast.
Yes.
We'll be talking about, we'll be breaking it up. First, we'll be talking about the steps of the practical steps on how to start it, such as topics. Then we're going to talk about equipment, content strategy, and also
The inners and outers of your actual show.
yes. And make sure you listen throughout the show, because at the end we will be saying stuff that we will have a special segment of the things that I wish I would have known.
Yeah.
While starting
Things
the
that we
podcast.
wish we would have done.
So I feel like out of all these things, that right there is probably not the most important, but something that you should definitely be aware about.
Yeah, if you're interested in starting a podcast.
Well aware.
Listen, if you aren't interested in starting a podcast, or you don't really care how this all done,
Send it to somebody.
you know,
that does.
well, send it to somebody, or just skip this episode. This episode is going to be more of a technical episode.
True.
You know, I'm pretty sure there'll be some laughing or whatever, but this episode is specifically dedicated to the people that have been asking, have been inquiring about how to start a podcast. We actually weren't going to do this because we felt like you guys just needed to do your own research, but because you know, no one helped us, I feel like we can go ahead and help some of you guys at least get started. People always ask us very specific questions about, you know, this or that, but a lot of the specifics don't matter. It's you got to have a plan. Because what is your favorite quote, Mo? I guess he doesn't know his favorite quote.
Plan.
No, that's
If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
yeah.
Right?
I'm glad you remember your favorite quote.
Thank you. Thank you.
But as Mr. David G. Garrity, and the G is for going places, and the G also stands for Gangster of the Year. He gave us a quote in sophomore year of macroeconomics. A plan is useless, yet planning is indispensable.
Absolutely.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Yes. And if you guys been
David
with
G.
us
Garrity.
since day one, you guys probably know that Jabril has beat that quote to a pulp.
Yes, and I will continue to beat it because it is one of the best quotes. It's one of many quotes that I remember.
Yeah. There is a reason why Jabril says. There's not much reason. There's not many things that Jabril says that he doesn't mean, you know, except for Papa Baby Night Journey. Except he probably meant that.
I meant that. Shorty, where you at?
Hey,
I ain't playing
so
with you.
Without further ado or further
Yes.
banter, let's hop in this joint.
Cool.
Right.
So where we start, Mo? What is the beginnings of starting a podcast? What do you need to start with
So,
first?
After you've made the decision that you want to start a podcast, first thing you got to think about is, what are you going to talk about?
So a topic.
So a topic. Yep.
Cool.
And when looking for a topic, we're going to get really granular here and do it quickly but very effectively. When looking for a topic, figure out something that that you like, 2, that you know a good amount about, 3, things that you can pull your experience from and tell the story, right? So say you're talking about Legos and you've been playing Legos your whole life and your family love Legos. You have those experiences and people do want to hear it. Do you think there's anything else they need to add to you, bro, when it comes to topics?
Yeah, I think it just has to come from. It has to be close to home. And even if it isn't a topic that's super close to home, you need to be able to have the knowledge where you can pull relatively easily, right? So like maybe you love, you know, the Ottoman Empire, but you know you want to have a history podcast as a whole. So you know you might like a specific part of history, not in as a whole, but you feel like you want to get a more broad range of people by talking about, multiple parts of history. So just do something that you would have an affinity towards, a passion behind, and don't just do something to chase numbers, because at the end of the day, your personality has to shine through the topic that you're trying to speak on. So that would be my one piece of advice when picking a topic.
I like that
for your podcast.
Don't pick something because it's popular and because everybody's talking about. I like that.
Yeah, and the thing with topics is that it has to be a bit broad, or the theme has to be broad. The topic or theme. I think theme is a better word than topic.
Probably,
The theme of the podcast has to be broad, because, like for us, young and Muslim, I mean, that can mean many different topics, many different times, and it's a timeless sort of theme. So you want to pick a theme that resonates over time, that you don't have to worry about fading out. And some will fade out, right? Like certain sports, or maybe not. No, some topics don't. Some topics can fade in and out, right? Like
they just look different.
Like talking about space and NASA and stuff. Like there was a time where it was really big, and then it got really small, and now it's
big again.
Like space
getting big again.
Exactly. Now. So if somebody would have had a podcast like in the late '90s about space exploration, like it wouldn't have been as big. But now into the the 2010 this last decade, like space exploration has gotten bigger. So having that podcast at that point in time would have been a lot more relevant than before then. So I think you guys got it.
And then on the other side of the coin, if there's something that you do want to talk about and somebody else is already talking about it, that's also okay. Especially if it's something that's close to home, you can talk a lot about and you like. So that's not a problem at all. So don't be discouraged if somebody else is already doing it, because more than likely there is.
Oh, someone's already doing what you want.
Exactly.
You just gotta be better at it.
Oh yeah. Hey. All right. Okay, next, after you figure out the theme and the topics that we had mentioned, you're going to figure out who's going to be on your podcast, right? Do you think we should talk about that?
No. I think next you need to figure out why. Yeah, like why are you talking about what you're talking about? I think for us, for example, there's a good book by Simon Sinek as in Start With Why. Like, what is the reasoning behind the thing you're doing, whether it's a company, whether it's a podcast, any creative work? Like, what is the genesis of this creation? Like Allah created us to worship him. So why are you creating this podcast? Do you want it to be an outlet? Is this an outlet for you? Is this something that helps you get with your friends and you guys can just talk? We used to know a group of guys that did a soccer podcast when we first started. Yeah. And they used to just do it because, they're like, we have these conversations all the time. So we just wanted to do it, and maybe other people feel the same way, and, we could start that conversation in a bigger sense. It was dope. And that's why they did theirs. We did ours for obvious reasons. So having a general why as to the reasoning behind the start of your podcast is prudent.
I like that. And if you want to take it one step further, because you're just that type of person that's above average, try to go deeper with that why. Not only figuring out if this is going to be for your career, you do it because it's a social aspect of your life or just stress reliever. After you figure out that why, ask yourself that question again, such as, okay, I know I'm doing this because it's an outlet for me. Why is this outlet important to me? So like every time you dig deeper, they say that you're supposed to ask why 3 times to kind of get to like the real root of like what you're looking to do. Because every time you think of something, you always give like the general answer and then like the surface area, the surface line, and then you kind of get deeper and you kind of get deeper. So the deeper you can get with your why, the better it will help you along your podcast journey.
Yeah. And I think that goes into the next thing, which is what is your expectation of your podcast? Yep. So when you start doing this, right, a lot of people might say, I'm just doing it for fun. It's a hobby. But you really want to try and think years in advance. You want to think months in advance. Mm-hmm. When we first started this podcast, we knew that this was going to be a career move, not just us hopping on the mic and just talking and saying whatever and then, like it is what it is. Like we knew that this was something long term we wanted to do. We knew that we wanted to go in it with certain intentions. So that's important for you to do when you are starting this off. Like you have to kind of set up in your mind, where am I going to take this? And if this becomes too much, am I going to stick, am I going to stay with it when stuff hits the fan? Or is it kind of like if it gets too difficult, if I'm traveling too much, if I'm, if it's just more of a hassle than I want to bear, am I going to just let it go to the wayside, or am I actually going to step up, nut up or shut up type deal? You feel me?
That's a great point. I like that.
Yeah. Right. So what's your expectations? And I think that's it when it comes to the theme. Yeah.
Yep. So
So now if you've gotten this far, you now, my friend, are at the genesis of starting your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to have a podcast, what do you need, Mo?
You need equipment.
Yes.
And when you look at your equipment, the first thing you got to see is, you got money or not?
Can you buy anything?
Is there a budget? If the first question is no, because we're trying to do this in order. If your answer is no, okay, don't have a budget, then what do you currently have? Do you have a smartphone? Do you have headphones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the latest apps that can help you, get that software platform such as Anchor?
Listen, I'm going to tell you guys straight like this. So this is my first podcast. This is actually my third podcast. So I used to have a podcast with a good friend named Mike Thorpe. Me and him, we had never met in person. He lives out in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out Mike. Love you, bro.
Big Mike. Mike.
Mike. It's hump day, yeah. It actually is hump day. Wow. So we started the podcast. We did it all remote. Me and him would get on Skype. We would be seeing each other face to face, but we would record the conversations. And then when we brought on a guest, we would bring them on as well. And so it wasn't a face-to-face convo, but it felt like it because we were able to see each other and we could read cues and things like that. And we recorded conversations, and then we were putting them on to Anchor as well. I think now they should be on Spotify because Anchor got bought by Spotify. So that was a good way to start. Then I had another one where it was on Anchor as well. Anchor, if you guys don't know, is a podcasting app. Very good app. Highly recommend it. It makes starting a podcast extremely easy. Mm-hmm. Or honestly, you could probably just use any sort of phone recorder and record it, save it, and then upload it. Yeah, just upload it to whatever hosting site, right? Yep. So for my other podcast, it was called Brill Thoughts, play on real thoughts. And I was doing that every single day. I think I'm on episode 89. I was doing it for a while. And then I kind of stopped once we got busier with this, but it was literally just my thoughts and just saying what my journey was between when I was doing more YouTube creative work and then when I started getting into the podcast and public speaking. So it was following my journey and just giving my thoughts on everything. So starting a podcast isn't difficult. You just have to find the many ways to do it and then find a way that works for you and then improve upon that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going back to the point of equipment, when you're looking at your equipment, you have to figure out if you're going to do audio only, audio and video, because that's going to switch up the whole story in regards to what you need to get or what you currently have. So if it's solo, if it's just you, I wouldn't recommend doing both audio and video.
There's no need.
Yeah, because that's unless you're really trying to get your game up and this is to help you develop and you're just really a rock star and you got a good support system, go ahead and do it. But that's above and beyond. So
I'm obviously you. I don't think anybody should do video.
You think?
No, because that's a large investment for a lot of work that'll be very difficult to keep up with. Yeah. See, we started all different. I was already doing video work, so I already had a camera. Right, already had a light. I had equipment before we started. That's why we asked, what are you starting with? What do you already have that will enable you to continue to make content without you having to lose stride. You know what I'm saying? If you're I need to buy a camera and a light and a tripod and a better phone and or a record, it's you're never going to start. So
expensive makeover.
The reason why we started with what do you have is because literally if you have a phone like this, if you have a phone like this, you're good. If you have a smartphone, you can download any apps, whatever, you're good. If you have an iPhone, Samsung, any phone, it doesn't matter what your phone is. If you got a phone that can record your voice, you can start a podcast. Because remember, audio is a little bit different than video, whereas you can have crappy graphics or crappy resolution. As long as the audio is decent, it'll do okay. Remember the early days of YouTube when everything was going viral, yes. Right? But if you have bad audio, it's very hard to start a decent podcast. So, make sure that your audio is good, but it doesn't have to be like this, or it doesn't have it can sound like it's on your phone. You just got to take extra precautions, be in an extra quiet place, right? Maybe talk a certain distance from the phone. So use what you have and use it to the maximum of your abilities, unless you have the access to other equipment.
Yeah. Boom. All right. Quick list of the things that you may need. Obviously, this list can be more or less comparing to what you want to do, what type of budget you have. So first thing is smartphone, like Jabrad mentioned. Boom. So you got that. Next is the audio interface. So the audio interface can go both ways. If you're really not worried about sound quality just yet, and you're not going to have crazy long episodes, then you can go with the Anchor and the other smartphone applications that have come out to help you with that. But if you want the studio-like platform, kind of like we have, then you have to get an audio box. So if you don't know what an audio box is, go ahead and do some research. Audio box basically is a studio in a box. Got it. So you got that studio quality in a box, and that's what we use. So that's the audio interface. Then you need the audio software that goes with it, because that's just the hardware. They need the software to mix in and edit and do everything. Okay. Then you need a laptop. If you already have a laptop, that's good. If you have a work laptop, we would recommend that you try to get a personal one.
Definitely get your own.
Get a personal one.
Because if you get fired, they're taking that laptop with them.
Exactly. If you lose that laptop, you lose all your information. That's a lot of hard work and a lot of time being put in. Got it. Videos, then you need a camera, but we don't recommend that. What else would we say? You guys need wires. Maybe if you look at the YouTube video right now, you always see the wires on our desks. That wire is for the mics. You need mics, and it's all about your setup, man. If you want to set up like us, then you need the mic stands. Then you need the quality mics. But if you're just doing a quick plug-in USB type mic, that also works. But it's all about what type of quality do you want. If you want great quality, then you got to get not the most expensive equipment, but you have to go for the more of the studio-like setup. Mm-hmm. Would you add anything else to that list? I think that is, headphones.
Headphones.
For sure. Quality headphones.
You actually don't need headphones, but it is recommended to have them because you'll be able to hear the audio a lot better.
True.
Sorry, man. I'm looking for the score of the game because right now we're running away with it. So I'm like pretty hyped if I'm quiet.
Hey. All right. And then, So the people that are watching this are lucky because the YouTube family has been looking at our setup for so long. So they see what we have, and we can recommend you on a few things. Just DM us, Young and Muslim.
Yep.
Okay. Next.
What else we got? That's it. So now we're on the content strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is my ball game.
Yes. I guess we didn't answer the question. If you do have a budget, then that means you can go out and get all those things sooner.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Look, the best recommendation that we got is start with what you have.
Yep.
That was the best recommendation I ever got. And then build up. So like a lot of the equipment that we have, whether it's light source, cameras, or it's one thing or the next, a lot of it just came through biting off our time and saving. A lot of people don't talk about the importance of saving your money. You have to save money. So when you start talking about budget, it's not like you're like, okay, I have $800 and that's all I'm ever going to have. It's like, okay, cool. With this $800, I can make this. You can make $800 last a whole year for a podcast. Yeah. $800 can last you a year if you're being super cautious. Like if you don't have an influx of money coming, you can be super cautious. And I think when we go into content strategy, one of the things that we don't have up here is a business strategy. And I think, maybe we can go back to what is your expectation? Like, do you want it to be a business?
Exactly.
Is it just, what I'm saying? Like, what are you trying?
That varies based on
where
what
you're trying to take it. So then it comes down to looking at different business strategies of, okay, are we doing ads? Are we doing sponsorships? Are we doing, like stuff for social media? Like how are we going to bring in income so that it can fund the podcast? Because this does take a sizable amount of money and sizable amount of money for an investment. It takes a lot of money. So I think that's something that people don't talk about when they talk about starting a podcast. Like it takes money. It takes money to post up and maybe hire somebody to work on your content, social media. Sometimes you have to buy platforms. You got to buy storage. You got to buy memory cards. You got to buy little devices. So like you can't do this for free. No, you can, but it's not going to be great. And depending on how you want this to come out, you want it to be great.
Hey, let's get it. Was that
content strategy? No. So now we're on the content strategy.
Yep. The next is the content strategy in regards to your audio and the platform that you have. So there are various places for you to post your recording. SoundCloud is a good home base because I believe you can go with the regular version that they have, but I think you can only post about 8 hours and then you're limited.
I want to go back to equipment real quick. And I just got to say, I got to get so much chest. Too many of you who are asking, DMing us saying, how do you start a podcast? You are so worried about equipment. You know how many people have DM'd me saying, what type of mics do you use and interface? Yo, that stuff does not matter. Understand that. None of that stuff matters. Only thing that matters is, are you getting content out? That's it.
You starting.
Just how we've done so much research on all this equipment, listening tests, going to the Guitar Center. You can find out how to do this stuff. So, I said it with SQ when we linked up with him in New York. The people who sit there and ask and they take the lazy way out just DMing someone saying, how'd you do this? Bro, like, I don't really think y'all about it. So to prove us wrong or to prove yourselves wrong, like, just get started, get busy making. You know what I'm saying? So equipment does not matter. Same thing with video. Like, a lot of people are, when I was doing YouTube, I would get little kids that would ask me, like, oh, how do you start? Like, what should I do? What camera do I need? Do I need a DSLR? I was like, bro, I literally went on Off-Road and brought a $40 camera and started making some YouTube videos. And granted, like, my editing wasn't the greatest, but it was like, yo, you just start. And where you end up, you never know. Like, I was editing on YouTube Studio. Like, nobody was editing on that because I had no software, I had no money. And then, subhanAllah, like, someone saw the work I was doing and they sponsored, like, they sponsored me with Adobe Premiere.
Hey,
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know, and that led to this. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to get started with what you have, and I can't emphasize that more. Sorry, I waited so long to, like,
it's all good. I
was like, should I interrupt? But no, like, it's important that has to be said. Don't sit on the sidelines just waiting and watching.
Hey,
sorry,
that's okay. I think you couldn't have said it any more simpler than that. Just get started. All right. So now, if you're low on budget, which I'm sure a lot of people listening are, the place that you should go ahead and post your audio are the free platforms such as SoundCloud. But keep in mind that these platforms are free for only so long. So SoundCloud, you can post, I believe, about 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Then they charge you. But if you go to the Premier level, which we have done, I think it's about a flat rate at one time, or a certain amount each month. If you pay the flat rate, it's like $20, $30 cheaper. But the good thing about SoundCloud is that can be like your home feed. So once you post audio there, it disperses to all the different other networks that you have. So SoundCloud is home. So say, for example, you post your audio on SoundCloud, then it goes to iTunes, then it goes to Google Play, then it goes to Castbox, and it goes to iTunes. The only place that it does not go to is Spotify, and the reason is that you need a hosting site for your audio. So that's a little bit more advanced. If you're at that point, then you already got this thing going.
Yeah.
You know, this is just beginners. I'm sure we'll provide more of like an advanced, I guess.
Well, the good thing about this episode for anybody who is looking to go into the audio field or whatever is that you can pull this podcast up anytime and just listen to it and be like, oh, like, I'm getting equipment. So what do they say about equipment? Or what are the things I could need or use, whatever. So this episode is useful for that.
Yeah, and you guys can also refer to us. We can always continue this conversation on the side, right? So now that you got that, you're good to go. I guess I do mainly the audio. So as long as you have a main homepage such as SoundCloud, you get the RSS feed and you set up SoundCloud in the right way, it can spill into everything else. If you guys need to, you guys can always reach out to me at any time.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned just how much you have to pay for the amount of times you upload and things like that. And I think what was important about that is that goes into the next question of how often do you want to actually post?
Yep.
Right? How often are you going to be posting episodes? When we first started, we were posting twice a week.
Every week.
That was hard.
That's
we did
8 episodes a month.
That was very difficult. The reason why we did that, we'll explain that later, but how many episodes are you putting out a week or a month or what have you? And then that goes into the question of how often are you recording it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to figure out those details of how often are you posting, how often are you recording, and then when it comes to social media, it's like, okay, are we going to make micro content out of this? Is it just going to be a picture based? You know what I'm saying? So like, is Twitter going to be our main app, Instagram? So it's a lot of questions you got to ask yourself about how you're presenting the content. Are you just going to put it out there and see who messes with it, or are you actually going to get down and, you know, be on Twitter every night and look for people in your topic and then try and engage in those conversations, and then, you know, like slide your podcast in there, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to really make a name for yourself so that people that you engage with will see the work you're doing and be like, okay, that's pretty dope. Let me check this out. And then, you know, they're going to listen.
I like that. And if you're looking to start off with a bunch of content in the beginning, we would recommend that you go from 2 episodes a week down to 1, because if you start with 1, then you go to 2, people aren't used to listening to you for that long, you know. So if you ramp it up, unless you put out some quality content, they may miss it. But if you go from 2 to 1, then they're waiting for that episode every week, you know, because that's what happens. Like, oh my God, we missed you guys posting. It's like, we ain't going back to that. We weren't able to manage that.
Go back to that. Those were the dark days. I didn't see nobody. we were recording a lot.
So after you figure out where you want to put the audio in regards to the platforms and how often you're going to post, like Jabril had mentioned, make sure you sit down with yourself or with your partner that's going to go on this podcast and figure out, okay, if we're dropping episodes on Wednesday, that means that the episode needs to be edited and ready by Tuesday night, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, then you guys should be recording either Sunday or Monday, because if you record Tuesday, then issues may happen, such as somebody gets sick or something happens and you guys can't meet up. So you always want to give yourself a day or two of a buffer because of life. Life just happens. We've actually been recording and sometimes posting same day or the day after because we're just crazy like that.
That's kind of like this podcast.
That's it.
Didn't want to expose ourselves, but we're telling the truth here.
Yeah, right. Hey, look. We're pushing the elevator back down to get people up where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, like with anything else, do you have a budget? And what we mean by that is that if you have some money to push behind your audio, we would do it, right? Mm-hmm. Don't know that you can, quote unquote, pay for stuff like that on SoundCloud, but you can pay for promotions on social media, which we will also go into. I guess we're there right now.
Well, I think marketing budget isn't just about social media, you know. Like, do you have money to buy flyers? Can you buy tickets, or not tickets, like stickers? Okay. Do you have T-shirts? Like, there's a lot of things that you can use that money for, and it's important. Oh, excuse me. Good. It's important to keep the money from the equipment and the marketing separate. You know,
yes,
that way you know, okay, this is right here. This is for the audio equipment. Maybe I need new headphones, whatever. But then you have your marketing budget, which is like, we had a marketing budget of like $20. So what are you going to do with $20? There's a lot you can do with $20. You can do one ad for $5, or I think it's like $1 a day. So $7 you can use it, or you can use it for $1 a day for 20 days. That this one post is just circulating, and you can just like push it very heavily. So, or like Mo said, you might have to use it on some of these sites. You might have to use it so that you can actually host, but that's only once you start hosting a decent amount. Understanding how much money you have to allocate towards that is important.
Mm-hmm. Then once you have those dollars, know where those dollars are going to go. So for example, you have to know where your audience is. So if you know that your audience is out in the Twitter hemisphere, that means you should be focusing and allocating those funds towards Twitter. Don't be naive. Don't be stubborn. And don't feel special. People will not come to you in the beginning. You have to go and find them. When we first started, when we were on SoundCloud, we had about maybe 5 to 10 listeners.
Oh, man,
it was crazy.
Those are the fun days, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's funny when you getting excited about 10 listeners. You're like, oh my God, we hit double digits.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. I remember when we hit 25 listens on the episode. I think we were like episode 14 or something like that. It was one of we were in double digit episodes. We were like, yo, we got like 25, 30 listens. We're like, oh snap, that's crazy.
This was in a week.
Yeah, it was like in a week. Wow, we had that. But it's subhanAllah, like it's dope because you really get a sense of you're grounded in your work. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just putting out the work and you're like, you don't really have any expectations of what's going to happen. And then as you grow, then you're like, hold up, how do I get less listens on this episode? Like, you know what I'm saying? So you really start to change once you start to get more listens. But when you can go back and reminisce on the days when you're like, yo, I remember when no one listened to episode 2, because for some reason episode 1 actually blew up. We did talking about Ramadan, but episode 2 was stuck on like 12 listens. You remember that? I remember specifically, it was stuck on 12 listens for like 2 months. We were like, what? It was a golden episode. So it's important to be able to look back at those days where you were getting no listens and realize, yo, like we've made a leap somewhere, right? At least, you know what I'm saying? We've made a jump. So
I not only, you know what, one thing that I did like was that we did a lot of experimenting and we saw what worked. We were posting on Facebook, but we didn't see much traction. But on Instagram, we did start to see some traction. So that's what we put our focus on. It was on Instagram. Twitter was kind of a hit or miss. It took us some time to figure out the whole Muslim Twitter. So that was kind of annoying. I still
don't feel like we found it.
That was kind of annoying, but it was worth it because you can only get better at it, right?
Yeah.
Once you find that platform, they say go all in. I feel like right now we're pretty all in on Instagram. Pretty good following there, and a great younger Muslim family. We appreciate the DMs. You guys DM us about damn near every day, and sometimes it's the same people, but we don't mind. We love you guys. Also, when you're releasing episodes and you say you're gonna drop on Wednesdays, make sure you drop on Wednesdays no matter what.
Yeah, just stay committed.
Stay committed. Stay consistent, because people will be looking. You'll be surprised. There's gonna be that one person waiting at 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's like, yo,
episode.
Like, where's your episode? Yo, I remember one girl. She was gonna fight. She was about to fight us. She was like, yo, where's my episode at?
My episode. I said, go talk to Jabril. He's slowing it down.
All right, so last on the topics, we get into the innards of the show, the details, the things that you really need to focus on when it comes to making your show. So when we talk about how you do your intro, how you do your outro, all those little details matter when you're making a podcast. Like, what's the flow? What type of show do we actually want this to be? Are we going to have ads on the show? Are we going to have guests on the show? Are we going to do ad placements? Are we going to do, what I'm saying? Like, what are the things that you want your show to be like? And I think that's important. And take away from this episode, the most important thing when doing any of this sort of stuff, especially creative work, is organization. Having a plan of a process, having a process, especially when it comes to the actual creation of your recording or your show, whatever it is, having a process of from idea. So maybe it's an idea for a topic for an episode, to the brainstorming, to the actual recording, to the post-production, to posting it up, to marketing it, and then starting that process over and over and over and over again. Look, this isn't going to be the most exciting episode, but I feel like this is so, like, if we would have heard all this stuff when we first started, it'd be like, all right, bet, like, I'm good.
Look, it's one of those episodes, all you YouTubers do it, how to start a YouTube channel. Like, they all have it on there.
We didn't say it was boring, but
no, but it's needed. Because everybody wants. I mean, there's people listening to you for that reason. Like, they want to be podcasters, they want to be YouTubers, they want to be creators, but stay authentic, especially with that intro and outro. Because when we first started, we're like, oh man, everybody's doing music, everybody's doing those voiceovers and
hey, what's up, guys? We really appreciate you guys listening to us. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and like and subscribe. Make sure you smash that button. All right, so we're gonna get ready for the show. You guys ready?
Exactly.
Hey everybody, we were like, nah, forget that. We about to just start it. Press record mode. Press the button mode. Press the button.
But then we committed, and we knew that's what we wanted, and we stuck with it. And now what? We have our own intro and outro.
How that started, I think we talked about on the Fire and Shade when we went onto their podcast. We kind of talked about the genesis of the. I can't even do it right now, but yeah, we talked about the genesis of doing that and why we started. But I think in all, it was, like you said, it was ours. It was our own. It was something new. So in order to do this, you have to listen to a lot of podcasts as well. You can't just start it and be like, oh, like, we don't know anything about it. You have to really be into it and being a connoisseur of podcasts, listening to different ones that have nothing to do with your topic, just looking at them stylistically. Like, actually tonight we're getting ready to go to a live podcast because we're trying to check that out. Oh, wink, wink, hint, hint for the future. What's good? So it's like, you need to be a learning machine when it comes to your craft. Just like with anybody else, you have to watch tapes and listen and things of that nature. Get that advice. So wow, we went very broad, but we'll go specific with the show details. Intro and outro is important. Having a strategy as to, like, for us, we decided that, hey, the first year we don't want guests.
Yeah, we did.
Like, a lot of people noticed that, and
which is insane.
Yeah, insane. We had 42 episodes with no guests, right? Purposely. And then we decided that we wanted to get particular guests in, right? So we did that according to plan. And so subhanAllah, it's been working out very well, and we stuck to the strategy, and we were relentless at sticking to it. just notice that all of our guests are always in person. That's for a reason. We made that commitment early on where it was like, hey, we're going to stick to this, and we did. So having a strategy, sticking to that strategy, and trying your best not to deviate unless you find other methods that may make what you're doing easier.
Exactly.
If it's not going to stray away from the game plan, if you're not going to change the message, then you're good. But if you start trying to do stuff that's not really you, or that isn't close to the reason as to why you started, if it doesn't resonate with your why, I wouldn't even go down that path. Right. So then another thing that's important is you got to look at the average length of the show. So some of you guys that have been listening from the very beginning, you noticed that when we first started, we had certain episodes that were long. Then we had short. Then we had like the really short ones that were like 10, 15 minutes. And what we were doing all along was really testing things out. Like, what would it be like if we just recorded like 2 10-minute ones and put them back to back? Right. What would it be like if we recorded 2 2-hour episodes and we put them out? How do people respond? So testing things out, being in the lab constantly, just seeing what works and what doesn't work with the audience that you're building, right? So that's actually very important. You have to listen to your audience. And that's not on here, but that's just a pro tip. Listen to your audience, listen to people that listen to the podcast, because that's prudent. Visuals and ambiance. Nice, Mo. Ambiance. Yeah. If you do visuals, so if you decide that you're going to do visual work,
Congrats.
Congrats. First off, that's a very big thing. But you got to figure out, what's the lighting situation. Like when we first started, we didn't have lights when we did video. So it was literally just, we had one little weak light, LED light that had like 2 LED lights on it.
Oh, no.
Like very, very small, but it was useful for what we wanted. And things like that. Show details in terms of where you're going to record. I don't think that's on here.
Oh, man.
If you guys have really been following us, we've recorded in cars, we've snuck into hotels, we've recorded in libraries, meeting rooms, living rooms. Like we recorded in garages, like everywhere imaginable. Have we recorded outside?
We haven't tried that yet.
No, we haven't tried.
No.
It's coming soon. So we've recorded in so many different places. And that's just because like we have that flexibility. We don't have a studio. So if you don't have a studio, remain flexible. But if that's not really a thing, then if you're doing it with multiple people, have a living room, have a dedicated space where it's always going to be quiet and you're able to be at your creative best. Yeah, creative best. So then no, that's extra stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to show details, a lot of it for us was about developing over time and trying to find our voice. No pun intended. Maybe it was intended. But finding your voice, finding out your cadence as to how you want it to roll, how you want it to attract an audience, and what are people like you listening to. I think that's important. When it comes to the style, you want to kind of know what are people like you listening to, and what will make them stay. So if you like NPR and NPR style podcasts is what you want to create, that's good. But if your audience isn't really there, then maybe that isn't the best way to do it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is good to just stick to the style that you want and let other people catch up.
That's what I think. I mean, I feel like you can start a podcast anyway. Our podcast is strictly conversational, right? We don't have any other things that pop up, any type of we don't have. Like we barely even have segments, Yeah. So I think it's one of those things that you try, and if people get onto it and they vibe with it, it's just like the Chop and Screwed,
And you've officially been and screwed. Ooh,
it's like,
chop. All right.
It's like when T-Pain came and did that.
Oh yeah, when he was using the auto tune.
Everybody's like, "What's that?" And was Soulja Boy came over and took over.
No. You got your timeline mixed. It was like swap, but anyways, you guys get what we're saying. Find a style, stick to your style, revel in your style, and you'll win.
Do we talk about the whole co-host and host? Figure out if you want to do it alone or if you want to have a co-host.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, figure that stuff out. Figure out what type of guest you want. Figure out. We made a list very, very early on when it came to guests, right? We're in December now, so we came out with the list of guests back like last October, knowing that we weren't going to get guests until like January, February of 2019. So we came up with the list, and then we strategically went after certain people. So certain people that we've had on the podcast, we were plotting on them for like months.
Long time.
So you got to take a very lengthy approach with this if you're looking to do this long term, because there's a certain way that you want to build. It's just like building a relationship with anybody, with a girl or a guy. You want it to be spread out. You don't want to try and cram everything very quickly. So you kind of want to get to know them or get to know your audience or whoever, or get to know your these guests or whoever, and then it's like, oh, like you should get on the podcast. All right, bet. So yeah, that's how we've gone about building our podcast. I think we're just over a year and a half in, and alhamdulillah, like, it's going really well. And as you guys know that have been listening or just now listening, we we really appreciate it. But there are some things that we wish we would have known
from the get.
Yeah, because these things, there are a lot of things that I wouldn't call them regrets. We had a lot of growing pains making the podcast. So, Mo, do you want to start off just sharing a couple of things that we wish we would have known?
Yes, I will share some of these painful pieces of advice that we did not get.
I didn't feel the pain when you said that, but it's cool.
Painful. Pain with a capital B. Painful. But for real, what we would say is that record in bulk. In the beginning, if you know that you're going to start a podcast, record about 5 to 8 to maybe even 10 episodes. That should cover you for about 2 months. And
that's if you're doing it once a week.
Not only record, but record, edit, and have the final project ready to go.
Ready to upload.
Do you think you can schedule? I don't know if you can schedule social media posts for that long, but at least know what type of thing that you want to post. You know?
So you can partner up your social media posts with the episodes, and then it's as we said before, when you're doing a content strategy, make sure you have a content schedule. So do I want to post on? I'll post on YouTube these days. I post on Instagram these days. I post on Twitter these days, and know what type of content each of those platforms are going to have. I personally recommend that you only choose one platform that you go hard on. So if you feel that being a visual master is where you want to be at, then go hard on Instagram. If you feel like you're creative enough to come up with short videos and they're funny, go with TikTok. If you feel like Twitter is like, if you're already on Twitter and you like how it is on Twitter, the speed of it, then get on Twitter.
Use what you have.
Yeah, use what you're good at in this case. Use because we have all those apps, but which one do we really care about the most? So use that. Even with Facebook is difficult because Facebook has changed so much that if you do video, Facebook is great. But if you just do like short clips and you're already doing long form video on YouTube, it's like, dang, where does Facebook fall? Maybe use Facebook for your memes. So it's really looking at the platforms and what's thriving on the platforms, and then trying to tailor your content to that, and then schedule out when you're going to put what piece of content on there. So as Mo said, you should record, I would say 10 episodes in bulk, right? 2 months before you decide to put it out. You can schedule posts on these platforms. So you can schedule, you can be like, hey, this one's going to go out this week, this one going that week, that week, and so on and so forth, right? And then that'll give you the opportunity to go ahead and take time to actually see how your audience is responding to it. Well, obviously, if you're just starting, you have no audience, but it gives you time to actually business develop your business, your podcast, so that you can get listeners in. Instead of you just putting it out and waiting, or like having to do all the work, you're like, boom, podcast is already done, the posts are already ready, so now I can post it, and then I can go do research and engage with other people and try and bring them into the fold, rather than trying to manage what I'm doing.
You play get ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually a very big one. That's a very big one, guys.
You start off really well, and you can keep that momentum. After that, get the business side of the house complete. Take care of that. But that goes back to expectations. If this is something that you want to do for fun, go ahead. But if you're looking at the future, we would definitely recommend getting an LLC or partnership, depending on what state you live in and what type of business that you're going to be doing, and what you're going to be selling. If you're going to be selling T-shirts, a whole bunch of merchandise, or providing services, make sure you also research that, because that will help you a lot in the long run, especially when somebody approaches you because they like what you're doing. What else? Make sure that you trademark your podcast name or any type of slogan that you guys have, because that's very important. If you do something that you started and everybody loves it, trademark that.
Yeah.
Ownership, baby.
Absolutely.
Would you have to add anything to that?
No, not to the business part of things. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We kind of hit on, like the motivation behind it. We don't really want to get into the rah-rah motivation, oh, are you willing to work your face off? But you do really want to.
It's hard work.
Yeah, as we said before, you want to have a realistic expectation of how much you're willing to put into this podcast and how much the people around you are willing to put into it. Because we had a conversation before. It might have been, it was either right before our first episode or it was before our first episode. We were on the phone.
It's on the radio show, I think.
It was after, we used to have a radio show called Muslims in America, The Next Generation. And after one of the episodes, I think we were together or was it on the phone?
Yeah, I think it was over the phone.
All right. So I was still living back down 757 and I called Mo. I was like, look, we're going to start this podcast, but I'm going to be real with you. We're going to have to be raw. We're going to have to expose some of the stuff that we've done and that we've, the struggles we're going through, because there's this stigma in the Muslim world that you don't expose your past sins and stuff like that. But I was like, you know what? That's not true, because we feel as though like the stuff that we've done can help other people. So you need to be ready to kind of put that stuff on the line, regardless of what you think your family may think or like friends may think is this, and the third, because this is going to serve a greater purpose. So you got to understand what you're going to sacrifice. And for us, it was sacrificing privacy. It was sacrificing, some of the more embarrassing things that we've dealt with in our lives or what have you, right? So you got to understand, what are you going to sacrifice? What are you putting on the line? And are you going to be willing to make that move?
And how far are you willing to take it?
How far are you willing to take it? Are you willing to drive 4 hours to go record? Are you willing to, spare embarrassment of getting kicked out of places? Are you willing to record in the car? Are you willing to, not sleep nights in a row because there's been malfunctions? And you know what I'm saying? Like, are you willing? Like, are you going to be out there on the front line when it comes time to drop an episode?
Yep.
And are you going to just disappear? So you got to figure out that for you. Like, that's important for you to do, because no one else can outline what your commitment level is going to be to not only the podcast, but to whatever audience you sustain. One listener is amazing.
Yeah.
Somebody told me this. They said, if you don't think that you're getting a lot of listens, right? And I think this kind of helped us in the beginning. This is actually the best piece of advice I got when it came to podcasting. Imagine that the amount of people that listen to your podcast are all sitting in one room. So for us, like, we were like, oh man, like, we didn't get the numbers we wanted on this episode. But if all you guys were sitting right here watching this right now, I'd be like, what? This is crazy. So
speechless.
Yeah, like, what? So keep that sort of mentality. If everybody that listens to this podcast was sitting in my room right now listening, I would be blown away. So keep that perspective.
After that, was just scheduling.
Yeah,
Scheduling.
Beat it in the head.
Things change. Things come about. You're gonna have to be able to audible. Not everything is concrete. You may get a call and somebody needs to interview today, tomorrow, next week. So a lot of times for us, weekend plans have been canceled, whether it's chilling with family or going out or seeing friends.
What's going out?
A lot of that has been put on hold or postponed because just the podcast was more important. But because we made that commitment in the beginning, it wasn't hard. But if we didn't make that commitment, then I think it would have been a lot harder, because we're like, dude, not again, not another family event. I gotta kind of let go, So just know that. Figure out what you're willing to sacrifice and make sure that the people on board are willing to do the same. So
yeah, absolutely. But listen, guys, we have to get rolling. We actually have somewhere very dope to be. If you follow us on Instagram or
expensive.
Twitter,
we went in today.
Yeah, we did go in. We did go in. I don't want to I do want to rush because I want to get where we got to go. I'm excited. Tonight we got a pretty dope night tonight. But listen, if you guys follow us on Instagram or Twitter, you can follow us at Young YUNG and Muslim, Young and Muslim on Instagram, Twitter. You can find us on Facebook as well as YouTube, The Young and Muslim Podcast. Mohammed, where can they listen to us, my friend?
You guys can listen to us on all the major pod platforms where podcasts are being listened to.
Pod it up
on a daily basis. We can be streamed on SoundCloud, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Castbox.
Tell them. Put it out there.
Young and Muslim Podcast. Please like it up, comment, share. Let us know how we're doing. That's the only way we get awareness. And leave us a review. We definitely want to see how we're doing, whether it's good, bad, or meh. So.
Meh. Cool. So Mo, listen, We got to wrap it up.
Let's wrap this
this
thing
up,
up, bad boy.
So for the last 49 minutes, you guys have been listening to the Young and Muslim Podcast. I'm Jabril Salam.
And Muhammad Hassan.
And we leave you with the greens of peace.
As-salaam.
Alaikum.
Goodbye.
Peace.